people are going to build these experiences. They're going to be able to text to video to create a space. They're going to be able to text to image to create textures and all that. They're going to be able to build AI. So you walk in, George Lucas is actually going to respond to you because you're going to put AI into the George Lucas laying in the bed. And so now you're having these incredible, intimate experiences. It's insane. I'm freaking myself out right now because this is where it's going. And this is what I'm saying. We're up here talking about TCP/IP instead of have a fucking conversation. You say, who are the 10 people that you would invite to dinner, living or dead? You're actually going to be able to do it.
Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I am joined today by a guest that I have previously been joined by. You are making Overpriced JPEGs history as one of the few people to now make a return appearance.
Wow, I'm honored.
I know. We've got Zeneca who comes on every other week. So that's,
I think he has me beat by a lot. Yeah.
He has everyone beat. And then I think we've had Mac Flavell on twice. I don't know, not too many repeats. You're in elite company. So Tom Bilyeu is here, if I didn't say it. He was formerly the founder of Quest Nutrition, of course. Folks, I'm sure you probably know Tom. He is the founder of Impact Theory. He has been on the show before. We are back to catch up with Tom about everything he's been doing over the last 7 months, really. And I'm just so pumped to get into all this. So Tom, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for creating a show that I really like. I think it's amazing. I have been a long-time viewer, so I'm excited to be back.
I am deeply honored by that. It's a very mutual respect, so always fun to have people you respect like your stuff back. We're going to talk about everything you have going on here. I know Project Kyzen is a big thing that will lead us into a broader conversation around the future of metaverses, deeper than just like what is the metaverse conversation? Like really practically, what does this look like? We're going to talk about, I want to talk about a lot of what your borderless entertainment, I know is a big topic for you. I want to get into a little bit, advice for brands that are entering the space, how you think things have evolved over the last 8 months. We'll get into all that good stuff. But before we do need to hear a word from our lovely, lovely sponsors.
When it comes to NFTs, convenience often wins over security, despite scams being everywhere. Brands and artists have no other choice by complying with big marketplace terms and weak security because no good alternative exists, which is what prompted Ledger to fix the problems of NFTs themselves and launch Ledger Market. The Ledger Market provides an end-to-end secure NFT experience for brands, artists, and users, enabling true ownership and control over NFT assets, from minting to storing. Ledger Market secures NFT projects via Ledger Enterprise, keeping you protected from phishing attacks and scams. And the market directs users to Ledger Live, where they can transact with a contract directly, giving clear signing details instead of blind signing and praying. Don't trust, verify with clear signing from Ledger Market. Stay up to date on the latest drops and marketplace updates by following Ledger on Twitter and joining the Ledger Open Discord, which is linked in the show notes below. BUENO is the NFT toolkit you need to launch your digital collectible on the blockchain without coding. Every step of the NFT creation process, from generation to mint, all taken care of by the BUENO NFT toolkit. With BUENO, you can load up your art layers, reorder the layers, tinker with rarity, everything you need to make your NFT project a reality. BUENO even allows you to mint your tokens on the blockchain with zero code and offers advanced minting logic like linking allow lists, airdropping tokens, and on-chain royalty configuration. As a part of their launchpad, you'll get access to forums to run surveys, email collection, and build your pre-sale list to make sure you are hooked into your own community. BUENO is full of powerful tools you need to build the most expressive NFT project possible. So go to bueno.art and start building your own collections today.
All right, Tom. So I don't want to rehash too much of what we talked about last time. I really want to encourage folks to go and listen to the first episode that we did together. I actually went and re-listened to it in preparation for this. And you probably know this, you make content. Like sometimes I go back and listen to my content and I'm like, oh, like should have asked a question there. Like you totally messed up that part of it. And I'm just really critical of myself. This was one of these, I went back and listened and I was like, this is a great episode. Like Tom brings so much wisdom. I just got genuinely lost in listening to it, which is all credit to you, very little credit to me. So I really do encourage folks to go back. We talk about your background, really your journey to Web3, how you ended up here. Really break down what impact theory is. It's like a sprawling thing you're building. And we really get into that. And then I felt like my big takeaway from that conversation was your thesis around NFTs as a way for brands, people, whatever, to curate individualized experiences for the consumer, the customer, their audience member, whatever it is, based on what they had in their wallet. As I go back and re-listen to that old conversation, that's really kind of the through line, which I imagine continues on into what we're going to talk about today.
Very much.
But
so.
I will say, do you want to give like the 30-second or 60-second rundown on you and impact theory, just for anybody who is coming in fresh and doesn't go listen to that past episode, which they absolutely should?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll do a real quick thumbnail sketch, and then if there's anything you want me to go more into, we can. Cool. So graduate from film school in the 90s. Think I'm going to get the 3-picture deal. I don't. Not sure how to make things happen. There's no YouTube, no cell phones with cameras. And I write a screenplay, gets turned into a feature film. I'm completely mortified by the experience. Excuse me. And I meet these 2 very successful entrepreneurs, and they say, you're coming to the world with your hand out. And if you want to control the art, you have to control the resources. So come with us and get rich. I was like, amazing, let's do that. Started some companies. One of them ended up being Quest. Finally end up exiting that company for $1 billion. And through all of that, I'm like, whoa, now I can actually start my own studio and tell stories the way that I want to tell stories. But along the way, I develop a very strong why. So now I have a reason behind the kinds of stories that I want to tell. But also during all of that, the technological landscape changes so dramatically that as I begin to build, what now is like a really common phrase, but when I first started saying it, like people thought I was crazy. But I was like, we're going to build the next Disney. But our job is to stay alive long enough to find our moment of disruption. And because this was back in 2016. So I hadn't even heard of the blockchain at that point. I could not have guessed that NFTs would become that thing that ended up being the moment of disruption that we were looking for. But that's exactly what happened. And so really understanding that technology and why it matters, which I still feel like even some really diehard Web3 adherents don't fully understand what it is that the blockchain has done that's going to change certainly entertainment forever. And so that becomes the lens through which we view now our company is very much through the lens of technology, Web3, the blockchain, and what we're doing. But also our background is we're very prolific at content production. And so we have put out, now between my wife and I, we've put out over 1,000 episodes of an interview show. Mine's called Impact Theory, hers is Women of Impact. And so we know YouTube very well, social very well. And yeah, we're wrapping it all back around to telling stories. But you can't even say traditional stories anymore because it's so infused with gaming and technology. It's just a totally different world than I imagined 20 years ago.
And for me to break down just the structure of impact theory real quick, and you can tell me if this feels right, like it's a Web3 at this point now, media production company that is really trying to, incept people with the concept of a growth mindset, right? Like, a certain set of values that you think are really critical for folks to learn as early as possible to effectively lead their best lives, right? I'm sure there's some reductiveness in there, but I think that's the basic outline. And you want to do that with nonfiction content, which is the shows you just described, the interview shows you and your wife both do, awesome YouTube content, your content on social, on Instagram, et cetera. And now you've really launched this fictional content studio, which it feels like is where you have the really big Web3 tie-in. And is that a good 30-second overview of the org?
It is. That's great. Yeah. So our mission statement is to pull people out of the matrix at scale through story. And so we want to invisibly introduce a growth mindset to them through characters that they, will hopefully grow up with and love. Our sweet spot is 11 to 15-year-olds, which is very anathema to where Web3 is at now, but I don't think it is, it's going to stay that way for long. And so that's a big focus for us. But yeah, right now in the Western world, your zip code is the #1 predictor of your future success. And I think, given that that's even more predictive than your IQ, this isn't an intelligence thing. This is an ideas problem. And so with my passions, talent, and skills, that was the only way that I could see to meaningfully contribute to that problem. And I really think that just like stories have impacted me by introducing me to ideas, and the example I always give is Star Wars introduced me to Yoda, Yoda introduced me to the Tao Te Ching, and then Taoism changed my life. And so we want to have that kind of flow where you can introduce people to some pretty incredible ideas, but you have to do it through pure entertainment. We are not an edutainment company. This is about entertaining people. And it just so happens that if you take Yoda's advice, your life will be better.
I was going to save this for later, but you mentioned that this defining moment in your life, because you mentioned it last time, so it seems like it was pretty defining. The control the resources, control the art idea. And I think we're having this moment in the NFT space where a lot of people are looking up, and you've got your Doodles, your Yuga, or whatever, who have raised a ton of money from venture capitalists. And holders are looking at that and being like, have I been replaced by a venture capitalist? Am I really the owner here? Does my voice really matter here? I have not seen any announcements about you or Impact Theory taking venture capital. I'm curious about if you have and I simply missed it, or what that calculation has been like for you.
Yeah, so we raised money at Quest, very late stage, thankfully. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have been as successful as we were. And we happened to get a firm that was unbelievable to this day. I love those guys. But no matter what, even with that, even an amazing experience with a firm that I thought was absolutely incredible, I realized, when you raise money, you put a gun to your head, because they are thinking about what's the exit. So they have a fiduciary responsibility to their limited partners. They have to get them a return. That's that. And so whatever that means, that's going to mean. And so, yeah, that was a very powerful realization. So when I exited Quest, I realized I didn't want to raise money. I won't say that I would never, but wow, I would really have to believe that it is the only conceivable way for me to reach my goals. To do that. And right now, I think that there's a better path. So we have not raised it. Thankfully, my wife and I obviously have, from our exit of Quest, we have enough capital to keep self-funding this. And also, you have to, one thing I would tell, startup businesses is you need to be a self-sustaining economic engine. So Impact Theory is already a multi-million dollar company without Web3, long before we got into that. And so you need to, one, know how to run a business. And that was my big fear with a lot of these guys. Not only are they raising capital and they may not understand what that really means functionally, but you just brought in capital and now you have a business to run. And if you don't know how to run that business, and I mean, look, I won't name any names, but we all know some of the projects that did really well out of the gate, but they don't know how to run a company. And so that's just a reality that people have to face, is that is a skill set you must have, which is why some of these guys, incredible marketers, incredible artistic talent, but they're bringing on the firms because they need help running the company. And so now it's going to be a question of how does that play out long term? Does it maintain the soul? Does it become something that people don't want? I'm pretty optimistic about some of the bigger projects. I think the firms that they're bringing on are very shrewd, and hopefully some of that wisdom is knowing when to stay out of the way, and that they recognize that Web3 is a different beast. But some will implode under the weight for sure.
You just answered this a little bit, but my feeling tends to be sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? Like obviously there's no one size fits all. And some of these projects who have taken on capital because they're like, look, we have big visions. We don't know how long this recession or bear market, it could be a really dark 12 to 18 months. We want to make sure we have the capital to sustain ourselves, whatever. Like it can be a really good move for some. And then for others, it will be a terrible move for them and for the holders. Do you have advice for holders of these projects on what they should look for to how to evaluate if this was a good move for them in the project or not?
100%. The question to ask if you're about to raise equity is to say, would I take this money if I was only going to get their advice and none of the money? Because with the money, because I know that sounds confusing, but basically the money should be the secondary thing, and the wisdom, the connections, that should be the primary reason that you pick somebody. So even if somebody were going to give me twice the amount of money for the same amount of equity, but I didn't think that they could actually help me navigate what will inevitably be a very difficult, every business is hard as hell. Hard. And so if you can get help navigating that, like you definitely need that far more than you're going to need the money. For sure, guaranteed. And so that was our thing, was when we were evaluating what private equity firm we wanted to align with, we were saying, hey, introduce us to some of the people that have raised from you before, and we have one question for them. Would you guys do the deal again if you got none of the money but all of the advice? And because people were like, yes, these guys are amazing, and the guys that we worked with really were amazing, that it ended up being a good deal. But for guys where it's like they're just trying to raise capital, and this is something as I go into my elder statesman period here, I'm just like, I want to get younger people to understand, don't try to optimize for dollars early on. That's one of the last things you want to optimize for. And so in these deals, it's like, who are you going to be able to introduce me to? Like, what kind of power can you bring to the table in terms of my ability to get a high-class partnership or the right technical people or an executive team, right? This is one thing that I was watching some of these, people that were starting a Web3 company for the first time, not even really realizing that it was a company and wanting to maintain that sort of outsider street culture mentality. And I was just like, oh God, like you're going to get eaten alive, because you need an executive team that really knows what the hell they're doing. And as a first timer, it's going to be hard to attract them. And so if you can get involved with whoever you raise capital from, if they're able to help be the gray hair, be the suits that can introduce you to these people, vouch for you, give you credibility, get the right people in the door, then now you've really got a shot. And so every company has to go transition from a hustler phase, which is where basically all of these projects started, and then mature into professional management. And that's where most companies go to die. And so that would be how I would advise them to evaluate. Are they going to be able to help you cross that chasm from being a hustler into running a for real company?
Well, what's so interesting about that too is it strikes me that that's also the kinds of questions then that, for example, a doodle holder should be asking doodles if they're nervous or upset about doodle's decision to make money. You know, I sit in these Twitter spaces and it's folks being like, why didn't you tweet for a month? We're so mad you didn't tweet for a month. And I'm like, what is that accomplishing? Okay, they didn't tweet for a month. You are where you are. Decide if you want to sell your doodle or keep it, and you believe in this team. And I don't hear a lot of people really driving at, I think, the questions that will help them as a holder evaluate if this was the right decision for doodles, which is what they should be caring about. So I think that's like a really good thing for people across the space to hear. It's like, and doodles might not be able to share what A16Z, or they didn't raise from A16Z, right? But like whatever these, their VCs are going to be able to do for them. But like, these are the questions.
Yeah, and I will try to get people to take an even different frame of reference. In fact, I will go out on a limb. Your audience is either going to be like, yeah, he's right, or this is where I'm going to get torched online, but I believe it, and I think it's true, and I really hope people will hear me. If you are a holder and you are treating it as if it is equity in that company, you have already lost. And you've already lost for two reasons. Reason number one, the SEC is holding a sword of Damocles. They are going to strike dead every project that looks like they are using their NFT as equity in the company. And so all of them will become traditional securities companies at that point. It's an ungodly amount of millions of dollars every year just to keep up with that. That will implode most of the companies that fall under that. The other thing is the energy in the space right now. Thank God we needed all the financial energy, all of that to get people to pay attention. And so I don't want to be ungrateful. I recognize I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but I really want people to hear me when I say, if it does not become about holding the NFT, this whole industry will stall right where it's at. And it has got to be about this thing acts in a magical way. It is a new technology, which it is, and we can get into that. But this NFT is not a share in a company. It is not a mere representation of my ownership. It isn't even a representation of my belonging in a community. This NFT has matrix code inside of it that allows for entirely new forms of entertainment, record keeping, all kinds of ownership privileges. And if we can get people to understand, you should be caring about doodles because owning it, having it, it being yours, gets you something that you want. Not, I'm going to be able to flip this at some point. So there is virtually nothing in my life that I've ever bought thinking, oh, I'm going to flip this at some point. So we have to really get new language around the difference between being an owner, critically important, super powerful, that's the movement, and being an investor. That's already here. That's played out. We know exactly what that looks like, but people aren't differentiating between the two.
Totally. I've talked about this. I think you put it perfectly. I would amend that. Look, if you want to hold a doodle to flip it at some point because you think it will have collectible value, which I think a lot of people are making that bet, great. I think that's, they're trying to be the next Disney and lovely. Maybe that'll be like the next Mickey Mouse character, but understand what that time horizon looks like. And then in my opinion, you're going like wahoo that they just raised money from, to your point, like people who are serious and can connect them to serious professional folks and et cetera, all of what that brings, because that's I think they've done a good job of justifying that as part of a long-term vision in their like broader roadmap. If you're mad about that because in the short term that you think that means they're like less focused on doing XYZ thing that's going to allow your asset to pump, like again, take a like you're not an investor owner in Doodles Corp, right? And you have to make that distinction between like how and why you're looking for this thing to go up in value.
Yeah. So on that one, I will loop back around and say, yes, but if the energy in the space is coming from I'm going to hold this because I think it's going to go up in value because hopefully someday somebody cares that this is the next Disney. The problem that you're going to have is the industry has to find a way to get away from that energy, because that's like, you don't market Tesla based on the stocks. You market Tesla based on the cars. And so to go back to your analogy of a collectible, and this is exactly how I would beg the governmental bodies to look at this. It is a new class of thing that we should call collectibles with utility. Okay, it's a collectible with matrix code inside of it. Now, yes, some collectibles are going to go up in financial value, but the way to get a baseball card, for instance, to go up in value is not to be focused on supply and demand and all of that. It's to have an awesome baseball career.
Yeah.
So if the person on the card is amazing, or there's something unique and special about it, right? Like that person, they died the night that the photo was taken, and now there's a special story or whatever, and like they touched somebody's life right before they pass away, and okay, like, now I get it. And I'm not saying that supply dynamics aren't a realistic part of that, because if you print out a gazillion of these things, then of course it's not going to matter. But I am saying somebody has to have an emotional attachment to that thing. It has to be about wanting to have it. That's why it goes up, because there's somewhere out there who's like, I'd rather have that thing than my money. And if everybody's just trying to flip it to the next person, it creates a very toxic culture, which Web3 is flirting with way too closely. And so it's like, as Web3 early adopters, all of us should be going, where is the emotion going to be? Let's rush towards building that infrastructure. Let's tell people about the emotion. I gave a talk the other day, and I was like, guys, the way that we talk about Web3 right now is like the internet in 98. And we're going up on stage and we're like, yo, have you heard about these amazing NFTs? Is like saying, have you heard about the internet and the TCP IP protocol? You guys are going to love HTTPS. Like, nobody cares. It is all about, what's it going to let me do? What can I do with this? And so if we can get people excited about things like borderless entertainment or being able to control your own medical records, it's like, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. Or I know a lot of people are playing in the music industry. I don't think I'm able to talk about it yet, but there's a guy working on technology for the music industry that if it is everything he says it is, it will truly change the paradigm forever, and it will allow finally the artist to be the ledger of note for their own royalties. And you can imagine for somebody like Bilyeu and what he's doing, you need that piece, right? So that the smart contract takes in all the royalties, that the smart contract already knows the bassist played on this, he or she gets this much of it, the singer gets this was a songwriter, that's all in the smart contract. Then all the people that aggregate the plays pay into that smart contract. And now, because obviously the songwriter is the one that owns that smart contract, all the money is distributed. They've got total transparency into everything. And that's going to radically change everything. And it's going to allow for what I hope happens in the music industry, which I think is what Bilyeu's vision for Royal is, which is basically, hey, your fans can co-own that with you and actually get distributions from that. Now, there's definitely going to have to be regulations on that. But if you have a smart contract that can handle all that. So anyway, it all comes down to, it's the love of the band. It's an understanding of your gifts, your talents, whatever, that make that moment very meaningful. Hey, I love this band and I've got a voice. People listen to me to be a maven when it comes to signaling what's good. Oh, and by the way, my ownership has these privileges, whether it's that they're able to get some of the royalties for the song or it just gets them backstage passes like what Aoki's doing, whatever. But like, it's the having that matters. We have to get to that point.
How often at this point do you spend time talking to outside the world of Web3 people about this technology versus building your massive company and talking to Web3 audiences and your Discord community, et cetera?
Well, so I spend the vast majority of my time building the company, and that has been insane and is a fun conversation unto itself. This is the last 10 months have been the most difficult of my business career, but by far the most exhilarating. This has been insane. I was working 120-hour weeks. Was it every week? No, of course not. But the vast majority of my weeks were 120 hours. Now run the math. That's 18 hours a day, Monday through Friday, plus like 14 to 16 Saturday and Sunday. It was madness. I was tired all the time. It was miserable. I hated it. Nobody should ever do that. It's not cool. This was bad. Don't do. But it was learning all of this stuff from the ground up, having to invent some of this infrastructure, getting into the aspects of gaming that you're not forced into, but is such a natural part of where NFTs allow you to go with storytelling, that we were building our own 3D pipeline, getting inside of Unreal Engine for the first time, learning about pixel streaming, all this stuff. And so it's been amazing learning all this, but that's where I've spent my time. Now, because internally, we're obviously thinking about Web3 all the time, I'm having conversations internally. We have a community that I speak to every week for hours. But for the most part, my life is building and talking to people outside of Web3. And so that has been an amazing reminder that nobody knows what Web3 is today. Even after that massive bull run, nobody knows. Like, they've heard NFT, they know sort of what Bitcoin is, maybe they've heard of Ethereum. They don't really know it or understand it. And we're having an outside development house go in and help us really tighten up Project Kyzen. And they were like, oh man, that whole wallet thing, like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's such a painful process. And it was like, wow, that's a really good reminder that for people outside, because we really want to be, especially because we want to get to younger and younger kids, 11 to 15 being our sweet spot, we're thinking a lot about, okay, well, how do you do that? Like, you don't want to have to teach them about wallets and stuff like that. Like, you want to make this as seamless of an interaction as humanly possible. And so spending time with people outside the space is very useful.
I'm so curious on that. I think you're connected now to Will Weinrob, who I talked to about that. I think what Will has done so brilliantly is sort of having this family first approach. In re-listening to our first conversation, I realized you were saying that to me 8 months ago in many ways. Like, the comic book industry cratered because they really stopped focusing on kids and kind of getting new comic book lovers into the pipeline. I think it was comic books that you were saying that about. Yep. Will, I thought it was so interesting given his approach to the space. I know he's working with Flow to build like basically child-friendly wallets that, are like the way parents have parental controls over your YouTube channel or your TV if you're a kid, something similar for the kids. Is there anything you can say on what you guys are doing there and how you're thinking about getting kids into this space safely?
Thankfully, I'm going to let somebody else build that. So we'll keep going. Like, this is, we learned very quickly there is necessarily a limit to how much of that infrastructure any one company should be trying to tackle unless you are an infrastructure company. It is a universe unto itself. And what I want to do is tell stories. So we've spent millions of dollars building out our art and bringing together all the 3D and the poses and rigging and animation and all that. That's our focus. But we're looking for kindred spirits that are solving problems like that. And so I've seen some of the behind the scenes technology that's not out in the market yet and what it can do, and with easy on-ramps and how simple they're making it and integrating things in a way where the end user doesn't even need to know that the blockchain exists. And that's where we have to get, because the average person just is never going to know any more than they know what the internet really is. They just know that I click here and I go there, right? And so that is 1000% what has to happen in blockchain for this to get mass adoption.
Explain what borderless entertainment is. You teased that. I think I teased that. It's a big thesis of yours lately. What is it?
Yeah, so this is what I've been looking for the right way to explain this that feels very accessible to people. So one, we have to understand why the blockchain really is the revolution that it is. And I'll sum it up super simply, and then we'll get into how this actually creates borderless entertainment. So what you have done with the blockchain is you've introduced physics. And I'll steal from Michael Saylor here. And what Michael Saylor said, and I think this is absolutely brilliant, and it's really true, and it captures what I've been trying to explain to myself or to anybody else about why all of a sudden did the blockchain make me feel differently about the virtual world? Because it did. The first time I saw it, which was I think 7 years ago now, I said, oh wow, that's digital scarcity. That's going to change my business forever. But it was so early that I just sort of put it out of my mind. But I remember thinking immediately, oh, whoa, introducing scarcity into the virtual world, that's amazing. So what you've done, and this is a quote I heard from Michael Saylor, for the virtual world to matter, it must become more like matter. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, you have to give some of the properties that we get with tangibility, we have to introduce to the virtual world. And so what are the aspects of something that's tangible? You can feel it, okay, maybe haptics, whatever, but I don't think we're ever really gonna get there. But you can own it, you can possess it. You actually have control of that thing, right? There's a reason we say that possession is 9/10 of the law. It's like, if you have it, you control it, you can prove that it's yours. And so the ability to prove ownership and the ability to prove that it is finite in quantity, those two things any business is going to struggle with. So back at Quest, I kept trying to come up with, like, how do we reward the people that are most into our products, right? I don't know where they're going to buy them. So I can either just reward people that buy online, but that's, maybe 10% of our user base. So 90% of my customer base is going to get annoyed. So how do I do something cool to honor the person that's just going into the local GNC all the time? I was like, okay, we could have them send in wrappers, but then you just incentivize people to go through garbage cans and get wrappers. So I don't have any way, same thing with receipts, right? I don't have any way to prove that, people are actually the diehard people that they're claiming to be, until ownership and provable scarcity online became a real thing. And now I know if you have that thing, I know that you own it. And so now I can build these experiences that follow you. So now that you've heard, like, the cool way of saying it, the reality is NFTs are a basket of cookies that you control. But it works the same way. I now know, where are you? If you click a QR code and you go to a website, cool. I know where that QR code is if I create it right. I know what you have in your wallet, and I can track different things that you have said you want me to track by creating that basket of cookies and exposing it to me. So this goes back to, collecting data isn't the problem. It's who controls the data, who gets to monetize the data. That's what should matter. And so NFTs give you that ownership over your data, but now, by having something in your wallet and entering my experience, I can take that experience wherever I want because I know what you've done. So we have a project called Merry Modz. It's our Christmas project, and we're trying to get that damn thing turned into a feature film. Script is pretty amazing. And at the end of the film, let's say, there's a post-credit sequence QR code. And you scan that QR code and it opens up some sort of game experience. If you finish the game experience, you get a POAP. If you take that POAP, now you can go do something. Let's say if you have that POAP and you go to the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, that you can actually collect one of 250 super limited edition NFT. So now that experience was on your screen, on your phone, and now in the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. And you can imagine, you can geofence things. So it's like, if I know that you are, I used to live in London, and so I would take the tube into central London every day for work. If I know that you do that, I can geofence an experience on the tube to make that ride into work way more enjoyable. And it's actually forwarding the story. And because I know which one of the Merry Mods you own, I can even insert your Merry Mod into the story. And so now it really does become this 360 degree, you never know where it's gonna pop up, because you've got AR, you've got traditional movies, TV, you've got gaming on your computer, and we're even now getting into live entertainment, which is gonna be one of my 2023 predictions about where some of this stuff goes. And so that is borderless entertainment. It's being able to engage with the IP that you love in a highly customized way across multiple media, wherever you go, as long as you have access to your wallet.
Oh, you put that so well. When you have these business conversations with folks who you are like, oh, wow, nobody actually really knows Web3 and we're in our little bubble, does it click for 99% of people when you put it like that? Or
when I walk them through a scenario, and I may have done this the last time we were together, so I'll be quick, but the scenario I always walk people through is, okay, imagine that you are an Impact Theory founder's key holder, and you go to your local mall, and on the little kiosk there is a QR code from Impact Theory. Your phone buzzes to let you know that you're near one of our QR codes. You take it out, you take a snapshot of the QR code, and now either on your phone or depending on what year this is, your face or meta glasses that you're wearing, you look down and you see a dotted line on the floor. And your friend standing next to you, who was not wise enough to get a founder's key, is like, what are you looking at? And you're like, you don't have a key, so you don't see the dotted line. But you follow the dotted line. You go around the corner, and around the corner is a giant mech from Project Kyzen. And it's obviously virtual, but you see this mech, your friend doesn't. And the reason you see that mech is because that's the item that you own from Project Kyzen. And in its hand, it's holding a quest bar. And the virtual quest bar is just spinning. You collect that virtual quest bar. It shows up as an NFT in your wallet there on your phone. And then a new dotted line appears on the floor. And that leads you over to GNC. You go to GNC and you can trade that NFT, burn it, and trade for an actual real quest bar. Now, while we haven't built that out yet, all of that technology exists today except for the glasses. So you could do that right now today. And if that's what we can do today, where does this go? And whenever I walk people through that, they're like, oh my God. And then we show them, because for Project Kyzen, we've created 900 unique, fully rendered AAA game quality 3D assets that are rigged, physics, the whole nine. It's insane. It took an obscene amount of time and a whole lot of money. But we built out this whole world, essentially, or at least the characters in the world thus far. And when they see those assets, and they're like, wait, that's what I would be seeing if we were doing an AR experience, or that's what I'm going to see inside the avatar creation engine. It's like, yes. And because it's rigged, I could show up, I could do a live YouTube show right now as my character from Project Kyzen. That would mocap to me, and I can move and make it walk around and talk, and the lips would sync. This is what we can do today. So this is only going to get crazier and crazier. So when you abstract it from the technology and you just describe what people are going to be interacting with in the next 12 to 18 months, that's when people are like, whoa.
Yeah.
They get excited.
So that's the key. We basically, audience, let's stop explaining what an NFT is. Stop. Just take this. Just use this example over and over again with your friends and your family, sitting at the Thanksgiving table, wherever you are. You did give that example last time, but I think it's just as resonant now, and we're still missing it, to your point. Like, we're still, as a community, I think we're still not doing a good enough job selling this technology without talking about the technology,
Right. So we need the Steve Jobs, it's 1,000 songs in your pocket moment.
Yeah.
Because up until now, everybody's like, it moves this, does this many transactions, it exists on this layer, you're going to make this amount of money. It's the wrong energy to get mass adoption. The energy is 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's something you already know that you want, something you're already into. So it's like, look, I mean, if I really want to turn somebody on who doesn't know who I am, but I want to get them jazzed, I'm like, imagine the Harry Potter experience. And you go, there's like actually Harry Potter Land at Universal, and there's one in the UK.
Disney, Disney World, isn't there?
I don't know. Let's say that it is. But imagine this. This could all be real right now. All of what I'm about to say is real technology that exists today. So let's say that you do the Harry Potter house quiz, but now instead of just being like, well done, you're Gryffindor, you get an actual POAP that says that you're Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, whatever. That's in your wallet. You now go to that experience. When you walk into the hall and hold your phone up, all the banners welcome you, confetti's falling from the sky, your name appears, all of the banners are your house. It's like, I'm getting the chills. All of the experiences are gonna deepen your relationship to the things you care about. That's the 1,000 songs in your pocket moment. And once we get, and the reason that we're doing a bad job is there are a bunch of us that are heads down right now, building this stuff as fast as we can. But it's like right now we're still in the tell you about it phase. Once it's like, hey, go actually play with Kyzen. Go create your first avatar. Mint it, then unmint it, right? Which that's new. So people are going, whoa, I can actually create my own PFP, but then I can break it back apart, change the hat, change the shoes, whatever, and then remint. That's going to be very exciting for people. And so then is that like, billows out and you take that farther and farther and farther, and they can show up and do a live YouTube or a live on Instagram in character. It's like, that's where this stuff really starts to get crazy.
Oh, you get me so pumped, even knowing some of the examples you've given. Let's go to Project Kyzen. This is something you were teasing in our last conversation. You were calling it Project Avatar, I think, and could only give, I think, sort of sparse details. Explain what Project Kyzen is and how it really ties into this broader vision.
So Project Kyzen is an NFT-based 3D avatar creation tool. That's the first phase. So in phase one, you're going to be able to do that. So like I said, we've got 900 unique assets that can be intercombined. So it's a head prop, which could be a helmet, hairstyle, whatever. Head prop, body type, face type, shirt, pants, shoes, and back item, which typically is a weapon, but not always. You combine them however you want with a pose and a background. And all of them, of course, have differing degrees of rarity. Turn it into what you want. You can mint it out as a PFP. Once you mint it as a PFP, there's also in phase one a little surprise for people that are an adventurer gamer type. We've got a little something for you because this is all embedded inside of a gigantic story world. And so there are different characters that you'll meet that are part of that story. As you solve some of the puzzles, it reveals more of the story, explains why you're there, all of that. And so that'll be phase one. Then in phase two, you'll be able to go into the world itself. And then in phase three, you'll be able to invite people back into your space, and there'll be private spaces and things like that. And we're just building it out in the stair-step function of marching towards what I think will be a new style of gameplay. So while it will be 3D or AAA, my brain rams 3D and AAA into the same neuron, into its AAA quality. But it will be an experience that's very unique. So it's what we call a game-like experience. So we're aiming at puzzle, adventurer, gamer types. That'll be what we do in the beginning, but you'll be able to have really interesting experiences. So we are aggressively pursuing some brands to do partnerships with that would allow us to deepen some known stories, bring them into our world, and allow players to effectively interact in a really unique way because of the abilities that we can do with motion capture and things like that, where people could find themselves in a room with somebody that they would really like to meet is the hope. So that's the kind of thing that we're working on. That's farther into the future, but phases 1 and 2, that's all. Phase 1 is in bug testing at this point, so that's done except for optimizing, and then phase 2 is probably about 80% of the way there.
You teased this like bundle unbundle thing, which I want to get into, but let's unpack this broader vision a little bit more. I think of this as a metaverse in many ways, right? You're building out a world that, to my understanding, will have all these different experiences. Like, you'll have Mary Modz experiences, I imagine. You have these brand partnerships that'll have their own experiences. So it's not entirely dissimilar to a sandbox in broad concept of like it's a place and you walk around and there's different activations and experiences in it. Is that true, fair? Where would you draw distinctions there?
It's very fair. The only reason I don't use the word metaverse very often is the metaverse, as everybody conceives of it, is Ready Player One, the book. And I think that is the right vision. I think that is what this becomes. And when I say it's a game-like experience, I'm trying to describe Ready Player One, the book. Now, what I found so interesting about Ready Player One, the book, is that A, it's largely a grand adventure, which life should be like anyway, but it's these really intimate, nuanced experiences created by other players. That's where this gets interesting. And so the one top-down part is the blockchain was created, right? And so we can point to the people that created the blockchain, sort of, in the case of Satoshi. But you more or less know how those come into existence. But like the internet, after that, it's just going back to this idea of introducing physics into the digital world. Now people can build on it because there's predictability to it. There's persistence. And once you have that predictability, that persistence, now people can come in and they can really create something. And so it will, one, take a lot of standards setting so that anybody can come in and know that they can trust that they can build on top of this thing, that it is versatile enough, unlike something like Minecraft, which is amazing. I'm blown away by what they've created. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to throw shade on Minecraft. Mind-blowing. But it's a style, right? It is very specific. And same thing I would say about Sandbox. So you need something that can really handle all kinds of different render styles, because I want to go into one world and have it be 3D cell shaded like anime. And I'm like, yo, I'm in the anime world and I'm going to be drawn to that. And then other times where it's photorealistic and I can rebuild the childhood home that I grew up in just because I want to have that experience. And then, you'll get these love letters from fans. Like in Ready Player One, he talks about the John Hughes neighborhood in Chicago that somebody built, and all the different characters are walking around and you can interact with them. And of course, there are games and puzzles. That's the way that fandoms are. That's what you're going to get. So we were interviewing somebody for our marketing team. He gave me such a brilliant insight. And he was talking to me about
I guess he got
fandoms.
the job.
He's still interviewing, but it's funny. Even just retelling the story really makes me want to hire him. He said, I was working on a Lego project, and I went to them, and I was going out to all the fans, and I was like, what do you want? And they said, we don't feel heard. And I was like, you hear that complaint all the time. And I was like, but what does it really mean? And he said, they want opportunities to prove they're a fan. I was like, what do you mean? So he did this initiative, and his whole trick, Carly, this is like an insight into human nature that is so disturbing, if I'm honest, but profound. And he said, I needed to give them moments where they could stand in line. And I was like, what? And he was like, I needed to give them moments where they could stand in line. So what I did was, we opened, this is, 10 years ago, we created a moment at midnight where when the Star Wars Lego set launched, that there was like 3 Walmarts that opened at midnight for these guys to come in and shop. And he said they lined up around the entire building. He said we were expecting 100 people. And he was like, it turned into this whole thing, and they now still do it. And I forget how many stores participate now. And he was like, when people get the opportunity to stand in line, to wear their outfits, they're showing the world that they're a fan. Now, what does that look like in the metaverse? It looks like people build something to show that they're a fan. They recreate the Dagobah swamp from Star Wars. They recreate an X-Wing fighter. They're going to build experiences, but those experiences are going to be things like you meet George Lucas in the hospital right after he got in the car accident that he got into before he made THX 1138, right? And so it's this really nuanced moment where someone like me who knows about that moment, like I get to be there in the hospital and like see, and maybe he's taken, now, have you seen the AI podcast, Carly?
No.
Oh my God. So we're living through a moment right now of AI. I could not be more excited, but this is crazy.
You have to come on for just 2 hours every time you come on, because I have like 6
Carly,
notes already of things to talk
For you,
about.
I am down. I am 100% down. So
Okay, say more.
There is, we're living through that moment right now of when AI cracks into the usable. So we're already using AI in our art. It's amazing. It's still like a little clunky, but oh my God, it's this good. It's only going to get better. Facebook, Meta, just launched their, old house die hard. Meta just launched their text to video. So that's going to be a thing. And then somebody launched a podcast between Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs. It's insane. So first of all, you're going to feel it's like, one, Steve Jobs is worse than Rogan. Why? Because there's so much more Rogan talking. Rogan sounds, other than he's just not quite saying anything profound, but like the way he's talking, the emotional inflection, all of it is unbelievable. So anyway, I say all of this because it got me thinking. I was like, Carly, okay, wait, people are going to build these experiences. They're going to be able to text to video to create a space. They're going to be able to text to image to create textures and all that. They're going to be able to build AI. So you walk in, George Lucas is actually going to respond to you because you're going to put AI into the George Lucas laying in the bed. And so now you're having these incredible, intimate experiences. It's insane. I'm freaking myself out right now because this is where it's going. And this is what I'm saying. We're up here talking about TCP/IP instead of have a fucking conversation. You say, who are the 10 people that you would invite to dinner, living or dead? You're actually going to be able to do it. Someone is going to build that experience for you. You're going to be able to go into a room that matters in the lore of that person and have a conversation with them. And you're going to notice the little fucking Easter eggs. And then you're going to want to know who created this room. And then you're going to learn more about that person. They're going to have their own universe. Carly, it's getting so cool. Like Yeah.
The AI thing, as a creator who has like soft editing skills, but no hard editing skills, the idea, like, I'm like, oh, I have this great idea for a promo thing I want to do for the episode. Now I gotta, see if some of the freelancers I'm working for are available and can like do it to my exact specs or the idea of just being able to like verbalize, like zoom in there, like cut it there is so exciting to me as a creator. I do think there's an element of, it's not just that we're not articulating it well to people outside the world because we're like, well, it's an ERC 20, but the 1155 standard, and like nobody cares about that. It's also, I think, people doubting or being like, do I want to talk to a fake George Lucas, in the same way that people were like, I don't want to tweet, or like, I don't want to anything new. The concept of it, I think, initially is off-putting to people. And I could see people having, because I even have a little bit of that. I'm like, that's both wild and a little bit like uncanny valley. Even if it's like really good, there's something that's like a little freaky about it, even while I'm like fully bought in and I'm like, yeah, this is where it's going and it's going to be sick,
It will be a double-edged sword. There's no doubt. And there will be people that get lost in it. And like any addiction, it becomes bad for their life. And it just is what it is. And so we all have to take responsibility. Cars kill a lot of people every year, but I'm not gonna go back to a world with no cars, right? So
100%. That's what I always say to my friends. I'm like, you don't know if you like the idea of the sound of the stuff I'm describing to you, but like social media, we know how terrible social media was. If I gave you a magic wand, would you wave in and get rid of social media? Like you wouldn't, and we know those consequences. You teased last time, and I'm guessing you can't say anything quite on this yet, but you teased gamification mechanics around people who want to better their lives. So the antidote maybe to what you're describing, which is I can now plug into my Headspace app and you can know if I properly meditate every day or I go for that run. We're seeing that with like Step In and some of these like, run to earn or workout to earn things that are happening. Anything more you can say on that? Is that still the vision?
It's still, it isn't even me trying to build hype. It's just that stuff is going to take time because the companies that you have to get them to open up their APIs, they're not going to do that quickly. And right now, this is all still so nascent. But now we're getting to the point where the pitches are so much easier. It's actually going into a bear market in some ways has been helpful. There's a lot less just like noise and people screaming. It's just like, cool. Here are the people that are left that know how to run a business, that have a long-term vision, that are really building something that's meant to last. And we've been doing it now for long enough where I can actually show you stuff, right? So it was one thing trying to pitch Kyzen when it was called Project Avatar and there was no art. I couldn't show you. Like, I can actually build an avatar now. I can show you, yeah, this is how it works. This is what it looks like. This is the flow. And so that now takes the conversation way farther. And so we've been having a much easier time with brand conversations, but there is still that trepidation of like, NFTs is a bad word in a lot of circumstances. And since gaming is like near and dear to our heart and most gaming companies absolutely despise NFTs, it's like getting them past that, like, no, what you don't like is the investor energy. It's not about that. It's about ownership. It's a different vibe. And so getting them to 1,000 songs in your pocket is what we're trying to do. But that stuff, it won't be binary. So some of it'll start to trickle out. Like we have one thing that I think will be able to get across the finish line that would come out in 2023. But most of the stuff is still probably a couple years out for like those really big moments. But people like Artifact will be able to kill some cool stuff because of Nike.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses that need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage its treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the highly secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasury management to expressive, flexible, and multi-chain treasury features, such as global user management, global contacts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Masari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. You have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. Do you buy NFTs? Do you like playing in the profile picture games or searching for underpriced rares? Or you're part of an NFT community and you want that sweet social experience that your NFT brings you? Of course you want these things. It's why you're listening to this podcast, and it's also why you should check out SINTRA. SINTRA is the most powerful and friendly all-in-one time saver for NFT investors. A new social-fi investment app with real-time sales, floor price tracking, Twitter mentions, and 700,000 wallets, all available to check out. All infused into a social experience to connect you with other like-minded NFT investors. In SINTRA, you can do your social media things like post, reply, share, ask questions, react, right next to where you showcase your beloved and cherished NFTs. And you also get a customizable feed of NFT activity, keeping you up to speed with the always changing meta of the NFT world. If you're not using SINTRA, you're falling behind. So go to sintra.com/bankless and connect your wallet to enter the world of SINTRA.
One thing that I like about your vision, and one distinction I would further draw between it and like a sandbox, is a sandbox or a Decentraland or a lot of these metaverses that people are familiar with did land sales. Other side, I've been pretty critical of land sales. Look, I'm open to any different kinds of models being the right one moving forward, but it feels backwards to me, where like now you're beholden to these people that were like available to buy that plot of land at a certain time, as opposed to the people contributing the most to the ecosystem. It strikes me that what you're doing is there's a gated component to it, and that you have to own a certain NFT. But in theory, those are community members who want to build up your ecosystem, who want to contribute to the ecosystem. You haven't done a land sale. Did you think about that? How intentional was that? And what do you think for like the future of these experiences, land sale?
Yeah, we thought a lot about that. And while it didn't take us long to realize that isn't what we want to do. So there's an interesting conundrum here. So you need scarcity in the virtual world, but you also want to make sure that you take advantage of the way the virtual world works. And so, which is that you can keep going, as many servers as you can spin up, you can just build universe after universe. And so we didn't want to do a skeuomorphic thing and just mimic like the idea of land or whatever. So we view it far more as a platform that we're building for our community. And it's like, okay, we're going to create this thing, a container, and then we want to make it easy for you guys to create within that
to stand in line.
And so yeah, to create these experiences like that, to show whatever it is that you love and let people come be a part of that. And you have to monetize. And so that's the thing people need to really get over real fucking quick, that these are business models, boys and girls. And so people are going to sell you something, they're going to sell you something at a profit. And that's just the way the world works. And so we're not squeamish about that at all, but we want to be thoughtful about what model is most effective. And so we want to be in the position where we're making money when you're making money. And there will be things that we sell people direct and outright, but we view ourselves more as YouTube than as real estate agents. So It's like we want to create something that people can come create on, things that we can't even imagine yet, that add value to the world, and people get super stoked to see it. And so when that takes on that third dimension, and I don't know how much your audience is paying attention to what's going on in spatial web, but that really is I think the first sincere part of the metaverse becoming real. And there's parts of that make sense as I have to walk through it. And then there's other times where that isn't the vibe. And so you don't want to hem people into one or the other. I think you want to be a little bit more thoughtful about taking advantage of what the virtual world allows us to do.
What is the spatial web?
Okay, so spatial web, this is where things are going. So if you look at what we've just seen with the sort of first attempts at metaverses, way more closed, not standards based. You're either in Sandbox or you're in Decentraland. The two aren't coming together. And so when we started looking at this, we said, okay, what do we think is most likely to be the thing where all the developers go to? And so our bet was Unreal Engine, and we were going to do pixel streaming. And so build out Unreal Engine, we start doing pixel streaming, and it doesn't work. It's too to get the game quality that we wanted, pixel streaming just couldn't handle it. And so we ended up making an executable. And then recently, I've been re-engaging with companies like Improbable, and then there's another company doing it. I don't know if they've announced yet, But that's one that I'm most familiar with. But if you understand Improbable,
Hadian?
no, I haven't heard of them. But now I'm
trying to figure out if they're doing the same thing. Epic just invested $30 million in them, and when I read their website, it sounds like an Improbable pitch to me. Like we're gonna enable you to do these immersive experiences with the computational power needed. Yeah. So continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Not at all. You're right on the money. So it's for the same reason that myself, Artifact, and Bored Ape Yacht Club all went with building out an Unreal Engine, doing things with Avatar Creation Engine, at least in the case of Artifact. It's like there's going to be a standard playbook. And I think the standard playbook will go like this. You're going to do an avatar creation portal of some kind so people can change it. That's going to be a huge part of it so people don't get bored with that and move on to the next project. So items that they can collect that are built from NFTs themselves into like a Voltron style full-on avatar that can be broken back up into its constituent NFTs. Then once you have that, you can enter the world. Now that world will almost certainly be coded in either Unreal or Unity. And then these pixel streaming services that are basically like WebGL editors with an insane compression algorithm. And that the guys that I've been talking to, that's their claim to fame is this is possible. And the reason we couldn't do it was there was no compression engine that could match 4K, 8K fidelity in pixel streaming. And so now it can. And so with that and all of the other real-time volumetric capture stuff that they're doing, you're able to create the spatial web. So you can go into any space, hit it with LiDAR, it maps out the 3D space, you put textures on it, and then you motion capture, for just an overly simplistic way of explaining it, a person, and then they can either be live in that space or pre-recorded in that space. And so now people can move around. So you're on a website, you go to, let's say projectkyzen.io, boom, you're there, but the top part visibly is a 3D space. You can control it with a game controller or do the, SWDX or whatever it is. I'm such a console player, I can't even tell you. But you can navigate the world exactly the way that you would navigate a game, but everything is clickable like a website. So the example I give, let's say I LiDAR'd my house, and now you can walk around just like you're in a game, open the fridge just like you're in a game, but now you could buy anything in my fridge. So if I did a brand partnership with Perrier water or whatever, you could click on that, buy it, boom, my code's automatically applied or whatever. Or you could go into my closet and let's say I've got the Project Kyzen merch hanging up there, you could buy the merch. And so it's turning your website into a game space. But the crazy thing is that right below the fold, if you scroll, it's now a normal website. And it's exactly real time. Like there's no pausing, glitching, loading, nothing. It's just you can be in the immersive world or you can be on the 2D website. It's a really astonishing experience. And you can make it as close to reality as you want or as far from. So you could do what we do, which is teleport. So you walk up to something that looks like a nice, cool, high-tech teleportation device, and then whoop, it sends you to a new land within Project Kyzen. Or you can do something realistic, and you get in an elevator, but instead of going to the next floor up, you go to Taiwan, right? So you can do all of these really incredible things that are only limited by your imagination. But that's spatial web. You're turning a website into a navigable space.
Fascinating. The second piece to all this, or maybe not, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but to me is the everyone there at once thing. And this, I've had Herman Narula, the CEO of Improbable, on the podcast. I know that's one of his big obsessions, right, is how do we extend these in-person experiences into the virtual world, which means 1 million people at a concert and 1 million people are right there. It's not, you're not broken up into groups of 150 people server by server. How much attention, thinking, deep diving are you doing on that?
Well, we're thinking about it a lot, and it's a big technological lift. So whether we end up building that ourselves or using somebody else is up in the air right now. Hopefully we'll use somebody else if we can do the things we want to do. But yeah, I think that's critical. And then the other part of this is persistence. So you want to walk into a space and be able to leave your mark. Now, how much you're able to move and adjust right on the walls, whatever, that'll be up to the creator of that individual space. But I think that's going to be a really big deal. So you think about one of the big things that helped Bored Ape Yacht Club break through, it was you could go in the bathroom and write on the wall. And that whoa, because of the permissions that I have with my NFT, I can actually do something that stays. And so that idea of persistence, I think, will be really big. And obviously we see that in Minecraft, like you can build these incredible worlds and other people can come in and experience them or destroy them. And so that ability to influence and impact the space is going to be important.
It's so crazy. That just hit me. Like you talking about obviously the Bored Ape Yacht Club wall and that was the thing. Like the cathedral you've just painted of where we're going, that like a year ago, that pixel on a bathroom door was like a really big deal to us all. I mean, holy hell. And I know people like Improbable or companies like Improbable, these companies have been building for a long time. Unreal's been around for a long time. It's not like that all cropped up from them, but just from a like consumer perspective, we've come so far in such a short amount of time in terms of how we're all thinking about the space. It's like honestly mind-blowing. We're running a little bit up on time here, but a couple other questions. I'm curious if you have advice for brands or companies, maybe more in the Web2 world, how they should be thinking about, should we be building out our own Project Kyzen's like full worlds versus we should be entering by partnering with Impact Theory and going into their world, by partnering with Sandbox or whatever, insert other side. How do you think brands should make that evaluation for themselves in terms of what will drive more value?
Partner whenever you can. If you can ever do something through a partnership, do it through a partnership. So the things that we've built because they didn't exist. And anywhere that we could leverage something that already exists. That's why I'm saying like now seeing where pixel streaming has come, even just in the 10 months that we've been building, I'm like, we may actually be able to switch back now to pixel streaming, because when I look at how much farther along that is for the kind of thing that I want to do, they'd be able to take a big lift off. The problem is I need to be able to introduce gaming elements. So we're exploring right now the edges of like, okay, how much can I actually insert game mechanics into this space? I know I can do all the things a website can do, but can I earn points? Can I beat a villain? You know what I mean? So I need to answer some questions for myself, and I'm early enough in the journey that I don't have that answer. But yeah, partnerships are everything. And for anybody that's watched my career, they'll know that this is a lesson that I've learned the hard way. I've always been the sort of heads down, just trying to build what I need to build and get on with it. And it's now like in my later life that I'm really realizing the power of that. And I blame my wife entirely, by the way, because, and this is like a joke, but it's actually true. So one, I'm introverted by nature. And two, I fell for my wife so hard. We've been married for 20 years that when I get time where I'm not working, I just want to be with her. And to network, you must authentically connect as a human. So yes, it's going to be a business, but it needs to start as like, I actually care about this person. And you really have to, look, you need to put yourself in the room with people that are into things that might be useful for you one day. Like you are discriminating in that way that it's not just, oh, whoever I happen to bump into in the street. But when you connect, you don't want to be looking over their shoulder to like, oh my God, is that somebody from Yuga Labs? You know what I mean? It's like, you got to be like really with them, getting to know them. Like, what are they about? And from that, over time, amazing things will happen. I did not cotton on to that until much later in my life. And so may others learn with ease what I have learned with great difficulty. But I'm now absolutely obsessed with getting to know other amazing human beings that are, happen to share interests and values with myself. And then, something will come of that. And it's already, I've only been doing this now for, 18 months, 2 years maybe. And it's like already incredible doors have been opened to me. And so, yeah, partner whenever you can. You don't have to build it yourself. You're also going to get some juice from who they know and people they can introduce you to. And there's just this incredibly beautiful knock-on effect of like, I'm garnering people I care about in my life. And because we share interests and values, we're also building things together.
There's also such a spirit of inclusivity in this space, in my opinion, because the people who are here right now still are just so excited that anybody else is interested. If you're a big brand, like they're just so excited you want to get into this. There's that mindset of abundance still. Even I think in a bear market, there's still that sense of you're in a growing pie, and it just makes people lovelier than in industries where it feels like things are shrinking and you're fighting over the jobs and you're fighting over the opportunities. And there's less of that here, which I think makes it easier to facilitate those connections and those friendships, because people are like, yeah, you take that opportunity, I'll take this one.
Early days are
fun.
You're so right. It's way fun. And because it's so new, you can get to know like the biggest players in the space from cold, because it's just the scale of it all is still so much smaller. And so it really is a cool time. And like you said, there's just a different vibe now at the beginning than there will be in 10 years when it's like, they're owned, the biggest ones are owned by billion-dollar corporations. We've already got Nike's got Artifact, but like that's going to keep happening. And I don't want anybody to be surprised or upset. It's like, this is the natural flow of things. So as I remind myself, and I will remind everybody else out there, enjoy each phase for what it has to offer, right? Like right now is a pain in the ass in Web3. There's no infrastructure. So all these amazing things that I want to do, they're all hard. And I have to build like a bunch of the stuff that I want to use because it just doesn't exist. 10 years from now, the infrastructure will all be there and things will be so much easier. But we won't have what you're talking about, which is it won't feel like this small community. It will just be the standard way of doing things. And so you want to enjoy what each phase has to offer, enjoy it thoroughly, but know that as the Buddha says, this too shall pass.
Final 2 questions. I'm going to give you both of them.
Hit me with it.
And then you can decide how you want to time your answers. Why did you build on IMX? Maybe explain that decision. And then second, I want to flag a couple things you have coming up. You have this $100,000 song competition happening with Mary Modz.
Yes.
Plug it. And some like table reads, I think, of Mary. You got some Mary Modz progress that you should, give us the update on.
Okay, so to make sure that I don't forget this part, because the other part's very near and dear and exciting. So IMX is amazing for what we needed to do. So we needed a game where we could go in a gasless environment and make all kinds of changes. I wanted to stay on ETH because that's my thesis, just the number of developers that are there. I knew that this was certainly was the biggest when we started, and I thought it had escape velocity already and would continue to be the biggest, and I think that still continues to be true. Obviously, there are some pretty interesting challengers that have entered the space like Solana, but also met with Robbie and the guys at IMX and really liked them, thought that they had the chops to see this through. They've been very good to us from a technological support perspective. And so, it's just ended up being a tremendous partnership from they do what we needed to do, great guys, very much have engaged with us and helped us overcome a lot of different challenges that we had. So for me, knowing that I wanted something that was on ETH, they were just the no-brainer choice. Now, ultimately, I'm chain agnostic. So if Solana ends up supplanting ETH, okay, I'm going to go where our community wants us to go. But for our needs now, IMX is amazing. Now, the $100,000 song contest, so yeah, we've got Mary Modz. I'm a Christmas junkie. My wife and I are both obsessed. So we launched last year Mary Modz as our NFT holiday project, and we're building it into a franchise. So we're going to be announcing the screenwriters coming up soon here. Hollywood guys that have great track record in Hollywood, and they've written a really amazing screenplay using our characters that we put together, and we want to get the theme song. And so we want to make a big splash. So it is a winner-take-all competition, $100,000 for the song. This will almost certainly be the biggest prize payout this year for the music industry. We've got some celebrity judges behind us that are excited and just trying to get as many musicians in there as humanly possible. It's a big opportunity. And one of the guys we talked to about how to put it all together is a guy who's written multiple #1 hits in the country music scene. And he was really excited because he was like, it was a contest that paid out $100,000 that changed my life and allowed me to do this full time. So he's like, I'm so excited to see you guys do it.
Timeline, what are the dates this is running from?
So people can start entering now, so it's ready immediately. And judging, or the final song has to be submitted by, I believe, the 26th of November. So you've got, 6 weeks about? So don't delay, get to it. Very simple rules, which you can find on marymodz.io. Yeah, so you can go there, check it out. marymodz.io/song contest to be specific.
Perfect. We'll put the link in the show notes. Tom, such a pleasure as always. I truly mean it. I have a page still of topics we could get into, but want to respect your time and just so grateful for you coming on. We will have you on again. I'm sure you'll be the first three-peat other than Zeneca. You'll really make history over his JPEG history.
That'd be awesome. I love it, Carly. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.